Welcome to the Ty and Rye the Finance Guys podcast, covering weekly investment news, important financial topics, and expert interviews. We want to help you become more knowledgeable about the financial world around you. This is not an offer to sell you anything, and remember, past performance doesn't indicate future results. Now your hosts, Ty Hansen and Ryan Robertson.
Hello and welcome. Brand new podcast. Ty Hansen, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I like that intro voice. That was a good one.
Yeah, that's my radio voice.
That's a good radio voice. Good podcast voice. Okay. I'm good, buddy. How are you?
Oh, man. Couldn't be better.
Love it. It's beautiful Friday. I'm excited.
And we're going to be talking about cryptocurrencies today, which seems to be at the forefront of most people's minds.
Everybody's mind. Yep.
Except for the last couple of months, things haven't been great.
Yeah,
so we're going to talk about that.
Pretty wild. No, this one's cool. I'm excited for this one, especially too because it's interesting because it is finance, but it's such a different animal, right? And
completely,
I love it. You've got some great ideas on this stuff. I'm really excited to hear what you got. So
yeah, disclaimer up front: we're not going to try to exhaustively discuss this topic, and we may come back to it later too as we think about different topics related to it that we could get into. This is a really good overview of the whole thing so that we can sort of think about it not from necessarily the technology side, which is a whole different thing. But we want to think about it. What are the implications for it from an investment standpoint?
And that actually brings up a thought too. I think maybe in the next month or so, I've got a couple of buddies, but one of my buddies, Mike, really smart on the tech side. I think it'd be fun to have him kind of come in and break apart some of the technology. But today's finance, right? Yeah. Obviously, it's Ty and Rye. It's not Ty and Rye the financial, Ty and Rye the financial engineering. What do they call those engineers? Like
computer engineers,
computer and tech engineers. It's not Ty and Rye the tech engineers podcast. It's Ty and Rye the finance guys.
As you can see,
yeah,
we're not tech guys. We can't even say the word.
We can't even say the word. Awesome. Okay, you know what I like about this too is so much of this has to do with history, right? Because the history is here, and it's coming out. Have both a bachelor's and a master's in history.
You bet.
You're kind of a history buff, and let's be honest. In history, the only thing that really ever mattered is money. So
the $50,000 I spent on my education is finally paying off. So the beginning of this idea is to think about, because cryptocurrencies obviously are really trying to replace and or be a competing currency.
Right.
So kind of goes back to this philosophy of what money really is. And for a long time, obviously, money was really a commodity.
Right.
Like gold. I mean, there was obviously a bartering system that people could...
well, yeah. I mean, if you go back far enough,
Yeah.
Caveman,
I have two rocks.
Caveman. Yeah.
You have two birds.
Well, I killed these birds, and I know you're hungrier than I am, and you've got rocks that are cool. So Ryan, here are two dead birds. Can I have your rock?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So So we started there, and now we have crypto.
Yeah, and it moves into where you're talking about precious metals like gold and silver, obviously making coins,
pretty things.
Right?
Yeah,
been around a long time, and in Mayan civilization, it was cocoa beans.
Nice.
Cacao.
Yeah,
they would use that. That was a currency, but it was anything that people started to believe in that they could use and say, I know how to measure what my good or service is worth, and you're going to give me in exchange for that.
And I have more of those goods and services or those valuable looking things or those beans, so I'm cooler than you.
Yeah,
right?
Basically. Yeah.
So
once we get into more modern society, then we start taking gold and silver. We don't want to carry that around. So banking started to become a thing. I'll put my precious metals at the bank. They're going to produce basically paper money or promissory notes that I can then go out in the community and we can exchange that paper money, which is backed up by the precious metals at the bank.
Then you get the banditos that are like Jesse James and the downhill gang, and they were coming up with their horses and give me your little note so I can go get your gold.
Yeah. And you get these wildcat banks in the 1800s where they would just pop up anywhere.
Seriously?
And there's no regulation on them.
Man, that's cool.
And they're just writing promissory notes. So what happens? People have these promissory notes that ultimately became worthless because they're not fully backed up by the precious metals.
That's really cool that you're bringing this history here, because I kind of feel like that's what some of these cryptos are. They're just random, like, anybody's who are like these wildcat bank. I didn't even think about that wildcat banking system back in the day. That's cool.
That was a big problem in the 1830s, Ty.
Or the 2030s. Wait, we're not 2030s.
Yeah.
2020s.
Well, in reality, it was a problem all the way up until we started this. Well, I mean, we'll go all the way back. There was the first U.S. bank, right, under Hamilton, really pushing that, right, when the country started. And then you got Andrew Jackson. Yeah. Andrew Jackson hates the centralized bank. So there's this kind of competing power between localized banks and then the central U.S. bank that kind of controls the currency.
Right.
So you get into the 20th century, that then becomes the standard for it because
the gold standard,
right, the gold standard, and then the centralized U.S. bank, the U.S. Treasury,
right,
that can sort of control now this supplying money, which was really based on the gold standard. Then we ultimately get off the gold standard, right. So we move from this commodity-based currency system to then what's called the fiat system, which is just what everybody does now,
right.
Which is the government just says, here's what money. It's just backed by the country. It's not backed by gold or commodities, backed by the country.
Right.
So what happens in that process now, when you start to talk about it,
right.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, that's what I was just going to ask you. It's like, okay, so I think that's a great way to go with this first. Let's talk about maybe what some of the problems are, right? Because it's not a perfect system, and I think we've seen this before, right? Like it can get pretty wacky, even though the federal government may be strong, relatively speaking to different world powers. There's definitely problems there. It's problematic.
Yeah. So really, the basis of any of these currency system is a faith or a belief in what the currency is and the system that underlies that. So whether it's commodity or not, everybody just has to believe in it. Right. So this fiat system that we're running now, there's a couple of really major problems as opposed to the commodity, which is there's an unlimited supply of it, right? We hear this all the time now. The government's printing more money.
Right.
Well, why are they printing more? Because they can.
Yeah.
You can't make more gold. Maybe you can mine more gold, but there's a finite amount of gold out there. So the government is doing that, and that obviously then creates inflation.
Well, and as exactly. I mean, on the market minis, I refer to it as inflation again. But and you're absolutely right. Like there's actually countries much smaller than ours, less world power than ours, less GDP than ours, who have experienced that problem, right? The inflationary problem, and that just endless supply,
huge inflation.
And they've actually, those kinds of countries have literally folded. Their economic systems have totally collapsed, doing less of that, like just printing than we've done. Like, I mean, we've gone buck wild. So and we're trying to dig out of it, right? That's kind of the concern in the markets right now. We're digging out of that, but So coming back to your point, it's like it's scary what power our federal government has with that money, what they can do.
Because you look at two really good examples of that. Venezuela just recently, right?
Right, exactly.
They print. I mean, their economy is decimated because they printed too much money out of nothing. Yep. And then another really good example is post-World War I Germany, right? They come out of World War I. Yeah. They got to pay off all their war debts because they were at fault. Yep. If you didn't know that.
My bad.
And they got beat. They got beat as well.
We lost.
It's that Norm Macdonald joke where he's like, you wouldn't believe who Germany chose as their opponent. The world.
Oh, yeah.
And they printed all their money so they could pay off their debts, and inflation just went crazy.
So I actually have, as a random side note, because it used to be the Deutschmark before they went to the euro, right?
Oh, yeah,
I have from like post World War II Germany, I have a $5 million Deutschmark, five million,
That's
5
cool.
million Deutschmark, right? And so I asked the guy when I bought it. It was like some cool little thrift store or whatever. I asked the dude when I bought it. I was like, "So what was this worth at the time?" He's like, "Probably about 25 cents." I was like, "Seriously?" He's like, "Oh yeah, people would pay like millions and millions of dollars for like bread and milk." So yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So this idea of being able to print money obviously just is tied to inflation, because if people have more dollars, that means they're going to spend more dollars, which means that people can charge more for their products. So it just ends up creating this cycle. So then you've got the other side of it, which is another part to these types of monies, which is you get the centralized control of the money. That's where the Fed, you hear that term Fed, U.S. Treasury.
Well,
the Federal Reserve System is designed to monitor how much money is out in the market.
And people may think that, and the reason I want to take this little tangent real fast is because it's so important to this whole discussion and maybe the excitement around cryptos. But I like to think, and people may tell me I'm wrong, but I like to think that when it comes to kind of that centralized Fed banking system and the political implications and things like that. And there's a lot of good checks and balances there. There really are. But I like to think that all politicians there's a lot of similarities as far as like, hey, we want to make sure that, no president wants to see something crazy with inflation or economic decline or whatever, right? But nonetheless, it's like Republican or Democrat, whether, it gets crazy, it gets really heated, people freak out, they get really angry. So it's like, so not only does it have like a direct impact where it's centralized control with the government, but it also spills out into the broad society of people getting angry with each other because of political beliefs, right? So because everybody, the number one thing people are concerned about is their money, right? So it's pretty when you think about the way our current economic system works, it's crazy. It's kind of crazy, the power that our federal government has based on what they do with our money. It's crazy, right?
So those 2 points then lead to why cryptocurrency really kind of came out. Is there in the fiat system, unlimited supply and centralized decision making of that, right? So cryptocurrency is sort of the answer to this idea, which is, they want to have a finite amount or just a controlled amount of currency, right? And if you understand Bitcoin, which is sort of the one everybody knows, there is a finite amount of it.
And even that is such a weird concept to me because it's not finite.
They can write it to not be finite, but it's as of now, Bitcoin is written as a code,
and it's only because of
finite
technology. Like I even had my buddy tell me, he says, like I had a buddy break it down for me, and it was like it's so weird and trippy how there's literally a way that they write the algorithm so they know at some point it starts throwing in these, like the algorithm it's kind of self-sufficient, like it's AI, right? It starts where it'll throw out things that it knows that people can't find at a certain. Anyways, it's weird. It's such a weird way to make something finite. But yeah, anyways, crazy.
Well, and so they write the algorithm, and the algorithm is built so that there's a finite amount. Actually, we'll talk about that because that's not 100% true. Because like you say, you can change the algorithm to
it's
not
crazy.
be.
Yeah, it is.
But they write in the thing they do is they write into it this control mechanism to not allow the currency to flood the market. So like in Bitcoin, for instance, new Bitcoins are created when new mining is done, which all mining is that they are performing a work of service within the blockchain, which you'd have to find out what blockchain means, but it's just the network, it's the system, it's the ledger, and they're performing transactions, to match up these transactions, and then when they complete that, they are awarded
an actual Bitcoin,
new block, and Bitcoins that go within that. So it controls the process of inflation. Now that's how they're trying to solve that issue. And then the other thing that they do is to decentralize the organization of the currency itself, which is now you're getting into cryptography and the blockchain and the ledger.
You know, the interesting thing about this, and this is going to come from a standpoint of just speculative tie and not like finance tie, because it is decentralized. I like that. But at the same time, it's like, what's weird is to me, depending on who's developed the actual coin, right, the currency, the crypto, like, don't you think there's got to be somewhere in there somebody that whether it's one person or a handful of people that are in that wheelhouse or in that sphere, like that have kind of control over that algorithm, right? So I mean,
see, now you're getting into the matrix.
Better the devil you know in some of our political, maybe I don't know who's the lesser of two evils in that instance. Anyway, so that's where I'm like, here's what.
But it's a good question. Well, so the good question with it, this is the reason why people start to have faith in, and in this case, we're talking about Bitcoin, because Bitcoin's it's kind of the unilateral code.
It's the leader, and
it's only for currency. Yeah, really. We'll talk about Ethereum in a second, but that's where this decentralization comes in, because everybody that's on the blockchain has to approve all of the transactions, or at least they cast their vote that this transaction has been completed according to the algorithm and it's correct, and it's decentralized on whatever, hundreds, thousands of different individual ledgers, computers. So you would have to hack the entire system to really do what you're talking about.
I'm talking more on the okay.
So, and again, there's an idea of cryptography that goes into the thing too that I don't understand, but somebody I guess does. But that decentralization allows for less corruption, and it allows for less politics to be involved in the decision-making process, because there is a defined system that has to go through. Well, and it's not one person or one system.
Yeah, and I even talked to, again, I keep saying these buddies, because these are people that you and I each, not only like you've done a ton of research. I've also done a ton of different reading articles and research and things like that. But then I've also got really super 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 smart friends that they understand the engineering world, the blockchain world. And even too, I was like, well, what if some of these issues come up? Because there's always weird things that happen within technology, right? And even then, it's like the algorithms are smart enough to recognize if, say, like you said, it goes through this blockchain to identify whether something's correct or not, right? Or ownership, like the transaction can go through, right? Yes or no? Can this transit? Does this match up? And I was like, well, what if just there's weird anomalies where it just says no? Then are you screwed and it doesn't work? And they're like, no. It's actually smart enough to know, like, as it's looking, as this is going down this chain, right, the blockchain, if there are a handful of random anomalies, it will still accept it, right? And so, yeah, anyways, it's just interesting when you start to break down all of the technological aspects to this, and it is kind of cool when you start looking at it at how functional it can be. So.
And that's why the idea of it is that it's really difficult to manipulate that process. That's the reason why it's been created. And so you can think about like a blockchain or a ledger, each space on that is one coin idea. And that space, like an Excel spreadsheet almost, if it makes sense.
I love Excel.
Or it helps.
Yes. Oh,
yeah, you do. Yeah. Your spot on the ledger has its own, fingerprint. And so that fingerprint is unique to that space on the ledger. And so therefore, all of the different decentralized ledgers, which are all double checking each other, have that same fingerprint. So if anything changes on that, that's kind of why. Now, it doesn't mean that it can't happen, because some of these other exchanges or cryptos that have been put out have had problems. Now, Bitcoin started in 2009 by Satoshi Nakamoto, I think is his name. Or no one knows who it is, but I think his name is Satoshi. Anyway, blockchain started in 2009. They haven't had one instance of corruption on the blockchain.
Right.
They haven't. So it's a very specific one. So that starts to give people, again, back to this idea of faith-based faith in the currency. It starts to give people a little bit more faith in that, oh, hey, maybe this is never going to have this problem. So anyway, that's exactly what crypto is trying to do.
Just as a quick side note, too, I don't know if this is helpful or not or beneficial or not, because I think the whole point of this is to kind of help people. Like, there's definitely people listening on this that are like, hey, like, I know a lot about crypto. Like, I just want your recommendations. It's like, but I think there's going to be a lot of people on this that are like, I don't know what the hell crypto is. I want to understand it better. There is a piece to this whole blockchain, a lot of that technology you were just talking about too, that's interesting, where as you're talking about these fingerprints and things like that, what's interesting about that as we start to look at it as an actual currency, one of the benefits is that there's a lot of transparency, right? And what's also interesting too is that fingerprint, like, I mean, if they get my fingerprint, at a crime scene, right? I don't know what I did that was a crime, but let's just say I did, right?
Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
Then, they've got that database where it's like they know immediately who I am. They know my name. They know where I live. They know everything. The interesting thing with crypto, though, right, is there is a numerical fingerprint, but they don't know who that is.
Yeah.
It's really interesting.
That's why the black market loves
it's great.
it.
In fact, there was...
You can sell drugs on this. I mean, it's...
And so...
It's an issue that's going to have to be dealt with.
Yeah, and I just saw something about this the other day. The Fed actually, or was it the FBI? They were able to actually, and so not to get off on a random tangent, but they were actually able to bust, was it drug, like some sort of a major drug ring as it was related to crypto. And again, I don't know how they were able to figure it out, but they were basically able to go back through a blockchain history and identify, somebody was able to identify through that who the connection was. And so, it's kind of interesting watching the evolution of the actual functionality of the system.
So, and that's the thing, is like, it's going to come back down to this idea of, okay, if we're thinking about it from an investment standpoint, what are the real obstacles and or problems? Because again, as we talk about this, I like the idea of a set standard with currency. That makes sense. Being able to control inflation, that makes sense. Kind of decentralizing it, that makes sense. But here's the problems. There's
and I would even say too, it's interesting because there's a lot of people that believe, hey, our, the and I'll throw this out there because, a lot of times we talk about this is, we want to cut out the crap, we want to cut out the noise, right? Because there's so much noise around cryptos and our economy right now. Mm-hmm. And that's what's important about this is a lot of people believe that we're poised to have a major economic, just that the system's going to fall apart, right? We're going to implode, and that crypto is going to come in and save the day, right? It's like, again, it's like, that could technically happen, but look, we still, and you're going to talk about this, I know, but we still have a strong enough current financial system that it can support it. But it's interesting, some of the conspiracy theories that are starting to get wrapped around this crypto idea and things like this, what you're going to talk about, these problems. So.
Yeah. Well, we're just at the beginning of what are the implications of this.
Yep.
And everybody's making all kinds of predictions about it. And the funny thing is, it's like on one end of it, it's like it's going to change our system. Yep. And then at the other end, very important voices, it's nothing. It's not going to be anything. So it's amazing to see that, because usually there's like going to be some consensus or some people do that. But on this case, it is the absolute polar opposites about the implications of crypto.
There are some crazy theories out there. Anyways, yeah.
So I don't know. There's probably more problems with crypto than what we'll talk about. But there were 4 that I feel like are important to think about. Biggest one is the fluctuating value. You look at Bitcoin going from 64,000 a coin just a month ago to now trading in the mid-30s. We're talking about a 40% drop in not that long of a period of time. Ethereum did the same thing. It spiked up to about $4,300, and now it's down in the mid-2000s. we're talking about 40% drops. So how does a currency work if the value of that currency can
and not only that, you bring
fast?
up a good point, because that in and of itself is the faith, right? That kind of cripples the faith and the reliability of the currency. Like, I mean, look, that's why it's like, love it or hate it, angry or not, you want to totally change our political system. There's a lot of faith that goes into our federal government, right? And the fact that, hey, I have $1 today, and guess what? For the last however many years, right, 220 plus years, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, right, we've been able to, I guess not, we haven't had dollars that whole time, but you get my point. Like, there's a lot of faith in the dollar, right? But you're right, crypto, it's like, I mean, what was it, 3 or 4 weeks ago, 4 or 5 weeks ago, when was that, when Elon Musk came out and said, this is actually not very environmentally friendly because, to mine, you have to use so much energy, right? There's these big computers that are, in fact, I watched a little documentary on like somebody making like a mining, it was like a giant tent in some field with all the, and like the amount of water, the amount of,
Russia controls
crazy.
A lot
it's
of
so
it.
crazy. And so Elon, what happened that weekend when Elon Musk, sorry, I can't speak. What happened that weekend? Do you remember? It dropped like 30% in a day? And you couldn't even, people couldn't trade it, right? Because it's like, there's no trading.
Yeah.
What did Robinhood do?
So fast.
Robinhood's like, nope, nada.
Yep. I know, I get on there every, because I have a little bit in my my Robinhood account for that very purpose, just to really track it for the most part. I'm really tracking it. I don't really care about it from an investment standpoint. I just don't.
Well,
and
you and I, we want
to
see what's going on with this. We want to understand it better, right? So that's why we use it.
Yeah. But that idea of fluctuating value, so those markets can be manipulated pretty easily. If you've got a lot of money, and even though they're big, we're talking about billions of dollars. Well, Elon Musk sold off $1.5 billion. Right? And so that movement in or out of it can really affect its value. So it just really creates that issue.
Right.
How do I use it as currency if it's going to fluctuate?
The other thing, too, I think it's important to jump in here, too, because you just reminded me when you said that Elon Musk sold. Now, he didn't sell $1 billion of, depending on your position, people don't actually always have $1 billion Bitcoins, because there's not $1 billion Bitcoins, right? They don't actually have, right? It's shares.
Value.
Sometimes people actually own the coin, right? But other times you own what? Shares of somebody that owns.
Yeah, Bitcoin at this point, you can buy up to, I think right now it's up to 9 decimal points.
Yes, right? Of shares of somebody else that has the coin, right? Right. That's what's crazy. So anyways, and that in and of itself starts to become a little problematic. I do want to jump in too with that fluctuating value of understanding that this is and this is a little old school in thinking, but again, it's the system that we know and trust. There's something to be understood with this, with any investment. Whenever I talk to people about this, because obviously we've got a lot of clients that utilize self-directed accounts, solo 401ks, and so they'll go off and invest in things that are a little bit out of the norm, right? So we're used to this stuff. But what I see, we're very used to what are called private placements, right? And the big thing to understand with all of this, with any investment, is we always want to understand what is the investment, what is the taxation, and what is the liquidity, right? And liquidity just means how fast can I get my money? Well, with a stock, there's a secondary market, right? It's the stock exchange. I can get in and out of that stock relatively fast, right? It's pretty easy. And that's why the federal government, the SEC, all of these governing bodies, right, to kind of help protect our investing society, they'll come in and say, okay, any Joe Schmo or plain Jane, they can go buy Apple, right? And we're not going to put any regulation. I mean, there's still some regulations. We're not going to put really any regulations there, because if they want to sell out, if they want to get in, it's like, okay, you're at your own. Like if you're an idiot and you buy a stupid stock, sorry, it's on you. But these private offerings,
right.
There's definitely a lot more rules and regulations. Like there's Reg D offerings, Reg A, Reg CF. I mean, there's all these different regulations. There's not a lot of regulation yet within the crypto world, and there's also not a secondary, like a strong second. I mean, there's a lot of digital wallets that are coming around, but again, there's not a lot of regulation yet. So it's like, again, could you when Elon Musk said that, and all of a sudden it drops 30%, trading was halted. There was no because quite frankly, nobody could buy or sell. Like it just stopped, and that's what I'm talking about. There's no secondary markets. The same structure of secondary markets doesn't exist, right? Which in and of itself, that affects value, that affects utility, that affects all these things we're talking about. So that's where it's like, ooh, that's pretty scary stuff. So, anyways,
yeah, it just makes it tough. It makes it tough to really make the argument that it's going to be a currency. You know, there's a lot of growing pains we got to go through to get to the point where it's an actual currency. And that again comes back to the idea of utility. Like, what are we doing with it? Because if the idea is that we're going to use it as a currency, that's a tough sell to make. Because every currency, as we learned at the top, Ty, you need faith and belief in the value of that currency. And if there is none, that currency is going to plummet, just as it did in Venezuela. Their currency is worth nothing.
Well,
people don't believe that it's worth anything, so why would I take that as payment for anything?
And if you're okay, if you don't mind, I want to jump into a quick thought here. And I know we're getting a little long on time here, but this.
Yeah, we're gonna have part two of this. I can already tell.
We're
gonna have part two of this because there's a lot more we need to talk about.
Let's get one of our buddies on, I think, too, with us to talk more about the technology side of it. So, and this is where I keep coming around because people are asking us like crazy what we think, what should I do. It always comes back to this too. So not only is there the liquidity issues and things like that, but and you're talking about this whole faith, right, and credit. There's something that I feel like is synonymous with having faith in something, and it's speculation, right? It's speculative because again we don't have this track record like we've had with our current financial system, right? The dollar, right? So it's speculating, right? So if I buy Nike, right? Am I speculating on Nike? Maybe.
I mean, on a relative sense,
very little speculation.
Teeny bit of speculation relative to
why.
The known.
What does Nike have? They've got.
They have Michael Jordan.
Just do it.
That's why.
They've got brand recognition. They've got lots of money. They've got a long track record. They literally have. They have physical
sweatshops,
goods and services. Like literally, I can go to the Nike outlet just up the street from me, and there's hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of actual tangible goods there. Right.
Yeah.
Right. What actual true like substance is there behind? Yeah.
You got a code.
Right.
You have a unique code. And you're hoping that everybody else believes that you've got a unique code.
And you're also hoping
that
you're hoping lots of other people are just as excited about that as you. Nike's done an amazing job of making people think they have to have this little swoosh and that they're cool if they do that. Now, I will say I do a lot of running. I love Nike shoes. They're great, right? So there's even a little bit of yes,
but that's the thing.
Exactly.
You've got a background to look at and go, they make good products. I love their products. They're not, that's the thing. You're looking at the track record and going like, hey, future, I can't predict that, but I've got enough evidence to believe that moving forward, that's going to have, if done
one last thought with this that we're
value.
Talking about, and I'll let you kind of get back to some of your other problems that you've got here, is speculation, anytime. Okay, so again, remember liquidity, speculation, things like this. Anytime I see a lot of excitement and a lot of speculation around something, it gets kind of wild for investors. And I'll give you an example. Pets.com, right? The .com bubble, the .com bubble,
brutal,
right?
That was brutal.
The Great Recession of '08, right? What was that? What was that? Why did our economy collapse in 2008? real estate speculation, right?
Oh,
Like crazy speculation. Mortgage speculation.
Mortgage
my gosh,
underwriting,
it's crazy, right?
speculation.
Like, this will never go down. There's so much value in all this. It's like now, obviously, apples and oranges. It's very different, but this reminds me a little bit more of like the .com than it does. But my point is this: there's commonality in all of these bubbles and them popping. Actually, that's a great point. That's a great example. It's happened
Holland.
it's even happened with direct gold investing, right? Anyways, my point is with anything like this, it's when you start to see a lot of greed and a lot of FOMO, like, oh my gosh, I gotta have this. It's like usually it's like if you're asking and cannabis,
Exactly.
like how many people are? Oh, I'm
That's
so psyched.
That's right.
How many people are high on cannabis right now? that was a good pun. High on the stock. No. How many people are excited on cannabis? Right? Man, that one just keeps going. Right. That's my point. Is it's like cannabis, like 4 or 5 years ago, it was the thing. Oh my gosh, I want all my money in cannabis. I'm gonna make so much money. It's like, yeah, some people make money. They do, but it's speculative, right? Anyways, I'm done on my all speculative, and that's
all speculative. Yeah, that is the good thing. If you are feeling FOMO, this should be the number one indicator for anybody.
Yep.
You're looking about investing in
Yep.
something, and your response is FOMO.
Yep.
Fear of missing out. That should be the number one sign to you. They're like, oh, I probably missed the upswing.
Exactly.
Probably. Most likely.
Exactly.
That should be the number one a sign.
Yeah, exactly. And this is the thing with this whole theory. And I don't mean to poo-poo on this because I think there's so much I think there's actually good stuff that's going to come from this. There's going, and like the .com bubble bursting. There's still a lot of good technology. Obviously, like the internet and things and companies on the internet.
Yep.
It's a thing now.
Yeah.
So is crypto going to go away, or is blockchain going to go away? I don't think it will. But the bet on it right now is nothing but speculation. So, anyways.
Yeah, right now. Yeah, and even people that are high on it, I've heard them, and they're like,
exactly. Exactly.
Don't do more than 5%. And it's funny, that's the number I hear over and over from different people. They're like, and these are people that are very optimistic about it.
And again, like, I want to come back around. This whole podcast isn't a buy or sell idea. This is, in fact, I'll disclose it again. Like, we're not here to sell something. What we're here is just to talk about. We want to educate, right? And so, saying whether or not you should do 5 or 10%, it's always up to you to decide. But it's just, with any smart investing, anything, if you want to be smart and educated, guess what? There's no magic bullet. There is not. I'm sorry. There's not a single magic bullet. They come and go. Yeah. It's kind of snake oil. I'm not saying crypto is snake oil, but it's like, it's the speculation, this FOMO, like Ryan, like you just said, it's like, if that's the kind of stuff that you're sitting here thinking like, oh my gosh, I need to take half of my life savings and go do this, pump the brakes. So.
Yeah. So we're going to finish this with just 2 more points because there's going to be part 2. I can already tell. There's a lot more we need to talk about. We're going to put that in the second one. So this kind of goes back to the problems facing crypto. Like, crypto's got to get to a point where it has a defined utility and has a defined belief or faith with whatever it is being used for. And we're not there yet. We're just not there yet with them. There's ideas, there's theories, but it has not been substantiated enough. It is just still in that speculation phase. And then the last thing I would put into for problems with it is the government regulations that are going to come.
Absolutely.
It's inevitable that it's going to happen. The government is not going to allow Bitcoin to become the currency of the United States or the world without a fight. It's just not going to happen.
That's what blows my mind is that and again, the conspiracy
for good or bad,
exactly.
we can argue the good or bad of it.
It's not.
But it's just not going to happen.
Like, the conspiracy theorists and kind of catastrophic thinking are like, inflation's going to totally destroy our entire economy and crypto's going to come in and save us. It's like the likelihood of that happening is so like insanely low. And I'm with you. It's not going to happen, right? And you're exactly right. It's like if it's going to take our federal government jumping in to make it happen, like their current the way our entire financial system is currently structured is based on like so much, like we're talking about the whole faith in something, right? And the current faith of our economic system is in our federal government. So why would they say, yeah, sorry, we suck, our whole system's stupid, let's switch to something brand new? It's not in their interest. I'm sorry, it's not in their interest.
Could we get to a point where the blockchain technology is
that's
used
exactly right, man. That's
that way? Sure.
That's it. That's 100% it.
Sure, absolutely. But again, with that whole discussion, regulation is going to come in, and it's going to adjust the value of all of these cryptocurrencies. I mean, we've seen it. China did something recently. In fact, I just read, is it El Salvador? I think it's El Salvador that's accepting it as their currency.
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it El Salvador?
Yeah.
One of those Central American countries. I'm pretty sure it's El Salvador. So you're going to see this, but yeah, it's just the type of regulations that really should be coming in to monitor, because there's nothing right now. Cryptocurrency is labeled property right now. They don't know really how to tax it. They don't know how to find out who to tax. Like, there's just so many questions have to be figured out, and that's all going to be factored into prices and values. And as investors, you just have to be aware and think of those things, because it's going to affect what you have.
And I think that's why we're kind of getting a little bit soapbox here and fired up. Is like, because we both talk to people all the time. They're like, I'm just hearing so much. I'm seeing so much advertising for it. And I think I said this before too in a podcast somewhere. But it's like, look, when you start to see like banner ads in like on your social media for like this digital wallet or that, and we'll give you free cryptos if you do. It's like, when you start to see that kind of marketing, it's like, okay, this is not the right time to be going. Oh my gosh!
Yep. You start seeing banners, you start seeing advertising, and you feel FOMO. Yeah. Two signals for you to step back and go, okay, I just need to
go
get over my FOMO.
Go take a 10-minute
I have so much FOMO right now.
Go take a 10-minute walk and come back and think about it again.
You do. Oh. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sleep on it for a little bit. And then go.
Yeah, I love it.
5%. That's the most. That's what you need to do.
So, if I don't buy this, I'm not going to make my $1 million.
Okay, that's going to be part one. That's good. I like this discussion. It got us going in the right direction. But I think we need to really focus on for the next time, because there is some interesting distinctions between like Bitcoin and Ethereum, which are kind of the two. The two competing forces in this and how those operate. And we can kind of get into more of the technology too, because bringing on somebody that knows. I have a friend that might knows a lot more than us about that. We're going
to do a round table.
I think we need to have a sort of a part two. That would work. So for now, from an investment standpoint,
very speculative.
If you do it, you're taking your chances.
Yes.
Work through your FOMO.
Yes. Yep.
Work through your FOMO. See a therapist if you need to.
We are financial therapists. That's what we are. I have my couch back here. That's my therapy couch.
Yeah. Just lay down and let's talk about your crypto FOMO. Crypto FOMO. It's gonna be in the DSM soon. It's gonna be like a diagnosable.
You have crypto FOMO.
I think you have crypto FOMO.
Good times. Very good times.
Yeah. I tell you.
We're done.
We're done.
Nope.
We're done.
No, it's good, dude. I like it. I like too. You brought up so many good things I hadn't thought about with kind of your history background. I didn't, it's like, it's interesting how there are shifts in economic system and financial currency systems. And I think it's kind of cool that we're seeing that right now, and whether it's going to stick in its entirety, I don't think, but pieces will probably stick, and it's cool. Really interesting.
Yeah, okay. They probably will. Go to myprosperteam.com if you want to follow us. We got a little spot there. YouTube, right? Yeah. You can subscribe to the channel.
Yeah, what happens is if you go to My Prosper Team, at the very top, you'll see a link. This is listen to our podcast, and it actually takes you to the section of our website. There's like 6 or 7 different links that will take you to the place that you specifically like. If you like Spotify, if you like Apple Podcast, if you like Google Podcast, if you like YouTube. Anyways, it's easy. We've put all of those platforms out there. It's your buffet. You go to the buffet and decide what you want to eat. We got it for you.
Yep. And send us comments. Tell us what you want to hear if we're doing a good job.
What do you want to hear?
We've
got a lot of ideas.
So
we've got.
Where is he? We can take
content for
critiques
days.
and criticisms. We're fine with it.
What?
We don't have big egos. I already said that. We don't have big egos.
Oh, dude.
We don't have big egos. You can tell us
so
what we're
small.
doing well and not doing well.
All right. On that note, let's end.
It is.
Ryan, it's always a pleasure.
Hey,
my friend.
Ty. Appreciate your time, buddy. Hey, thanks for listening to the Ty and Rye, the Finance Guys podcast today. If you like what you heard, go ahead and hit subscribe. That way you won't miss any future episodes. Also, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Ty and Rye Podcast. Also, check us out at myprosperteam.com. Thanks. We will see you next week.